Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesignacademy.com. In this lesson, we will continue with part 20 of constructing the car project. Okay, so in the previous lesson, we did quite a lot on the front fender. So now I'm going to continue on the rear fender. So if you look at this math right now, I did this without consideration for this fender over here. So I'm probably going to be doing a lot of fixes on this. Okay, but before we do that, let me just turn the series off and I'm going to construct a curve right here. So if you look at the image of the car over here, you'll see that there's a feature line that runs across over the rear fender. And we see a similar thing on the front. So we are going to do something similar to the rear. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a curve that fits this line right there. So again, like the front, I don't see a feature line here, so I'm probably going to rely on the top view in order to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to create a curve. So edit point curve, double click, and I'm just going to make that into degree 2, and I'm just going to strike it here and somewhere over here. So I'm just going to do it roughly because I still have to get the top view baked in. So let's see, use stretch tool to adjust it a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, now let's look at the top view, because right now we created from the side view, it's all the way over here. And I'm just going to get the canvas and hide unselected in order to isolate that. Okay, so looks like it needs a little bit of refinement. Okay, so I'm just gonna move it over here. And I think I need to push this a little bit to the rear, towards the rear. So I'm just gonna push it like this. And from, yeah, I think that looks pretty good. That doesn't look bad. I'm just gonna extend it so that we can sort of meet the corner there. And because I adjusted it a lot, I'm going to have to check it from the side view, make sure that I'm not off. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good for now. There is a slight chance that I might have to do that again, but for now, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to, from the side view, make a little bit of adjustment. So from the side view, because the curvature of the curve is a little bit more subtle, I didn't have to do a lot of, I guess, modification. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And let's see what we need to do next. Okay, so because we established the curve, I think the acceleration is a little bit leaned towards the rear, but I think that's okay for now. If we need to do any more fixes, we'll do that later. So now I'm actually going to create the surface to cover this. So, there's a flat sheet right there. Let me zoom in. So I'm going to try to create that surface. So I'm just going to grab a freeform blend for now. Position on both sides, proportional crown, maybe a little bit. I don't know how much. Let's just try it on. So I'm just going to say, well, default for now. Looks like the rear one is not working as well. So I'm just going to change it to connect ends, and I'm going to say modify range, and I'm just going to grab this and just bring it over here like that. Right now this shape is not that critical, but we will be doing some adjustments as we go towards the rear. Okay, so I had a little bit crown 0.01. I think that looks pretty good for now. I think that's good. Make sure the colors are the same. Okay, so after that, I'm going to be creating some surface over here. So now these surfaces, they are no good. So I'm just going to grab all of them and delete it. Part of the reason is because we need to connect this to here, but also because it just doesn't work with the shape over here. So I'm just going to get rid of all of it. And let me just untrim this surface. Now, because we want to go back to this corner, I'm just untrimming it. And after that, okay, I'm gonna go to side view. I think this curve is okay, so I'll just use that, recycle that. So I'm gonna make sure that I snap the curve to here. So I'm just gonna say hide, and because right now the default or the active layer is the canvas layer, I'm just gonna click on default layer like that, and I'm gonna use the stretch tool just so that I can do that. All right. Okay, so after that, I'm just going to create a surface that covers this portion right here. So you'll see that I think I see a little bit like a bone line or a highlight running through. So I'm going to try to get this into two. Oh, so right now I see a little bone line right there running right through here. So I'm going to try to get a theoretical right over here. Okay, so I'm just going to trim over. Okay, actually, let me just delete this curve on surface. I'll do that when trimming. So I'll just trim there. Okay. Oh, okay. So while I was creating the surface, I think my canvas layer was active. So I'm just going to bring that to the default layer. So just click on the canvas layer, make it active, and I'm just going to bring it over here. And I'm going to make that inactive again so that I don't accidentally move the canvas. And I'm going to use a bi rail to create a surface over here. So 1, 2, and 3. So right now, I think it's off a little bit. I don't know why, but that's a simple fix. So I'm just going to grab the stretch tool and I'm just going to re-snap it. Maybe we'll just extend it just a little bit so that I'm snapping at a similar location. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to use a bi rail. So 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 3. So right now it's still not constructing anything. In that case, I'm just going to use a rebuild on both sides. And I'm going to say curve segment, and I'm just going to bring this one over here. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. All right. Okay, so let's check the highlights. Because we did it, we cut the surface 90 degrees, so you'll see the highlight is matching quite well. So I'm going to use that to my advantage. And let's see. So looks like the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a surface right over here. But depending on the situation, I might have to peel this back a little bit. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so I'm just going to use a bi rail so to connect between these two, 1 and 2. And I'll just turn rebuild off because I think that's actually interfering. Okay, so let's look at the highlights. So you'll see that there's a little bit of issue right here. So I'm going to try to peel this back and hopefully that'll relieve some of that. Okay, so let's check this out. So I'm going to turn the curve segments off on that one. And I'm also going to peel this back a little bit. So in order to peel this back, I think I'm just going to use extend. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use extend to peel this back a little bit. Oops, I grabbed the wrong surface. So the problem with extend is sometimes because of the cursor action and the surface edge behind it, you might grab two surfaces at once. So you got to make sure that you're not doing that. Okay, so I'm going to use extend again. Turn the highlight on. I'm just going to peel it back just a little bit. And I think that's getting a little bit better, but I might have to do a little bit of adjustments here. Another thing that I can do is I can probably use a fillet feature, surface fillet, or something like that, to make in order to improve the condition a little bit. I think one of the things I might do is just use NUV in order to fix it a little bit. So I might because. Actually, I think that's making worse. So I think that's okay for now. Okay, so one other thing that I have to do, if you see right here, I see quite a a big surface division right here. So if I do a filler on this, oh, that's a mistake. Okay, so I'm just going to change that to chord G2, and I'll just increase that to 100 for now. Oh, that's not a bad size. Okay, so let me just do a filler like this, and you'll see quite a strong feature line over here. But if you look at the picture, you don't see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to flatten this as much as possible. So I'm just going to do a undo on this. And I'm going to pull this in. So if you look at this surface right here, so it's controlled by this CV, and I think if I pull this in, I think that's going to help a little bit with this feature being a little bit too strong. So if I just turn it back to a shaded view, if I just pull this in, you'll see that it's becoming a lot lighter. So I think that's going to help tremendously with this surface transition right here. So I think this is pretty good. Actually, that's helping with this too. So that's a bonus. Okay, so I don't know how much I can pull this in, but we just you guys have to remember that we still need this feature to return here. So I'm gonna make sure that we are not destroying that. So I think that's pretty good. It's not too flat. Maybe it is. I think that's pretty good. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to build some surface around it, and I'll try to see if that works as intended for our purposes. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to continue on building. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to blend these two surfaces. So let's do that. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if you see, let's see, if you see the feature here, so I overbuilt the surface of this portion right here. If you compare it to this math right here, so I basically overbuilt this. So what I'm going to do is but there's a feature running through right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim it, and I'm going to make this into a separate surface. Okay, so in order to do that, just go to the side view. You can press on the cube or press F6. And I can just, because we already have a surface here, so I can just use that. Project right there. That's good. And I can just do a trim like that. Okay, so it might be a good idea to make the surface first. So let me do that. So I'm going to make this one. So in order to that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a curve right here. Just project. The reason why I'm doing this is I want to make sure that the highlight is similar between here and the surface that I'm going to create. So in order to do that, you want to make sure that it just goes up and down. Straight up and down. So I'm going to say trim, and I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to rail 1 and 1. Let's try a rail and see if that works. So I'm not gonna do a curvature here, but I'm just gonna do a rebuild on both sides. Actually, before we do that, I should have done this first, but that's okay. Okay, I'm gonna see. Well, first of all, I don't think I can easily rebuild the surface, so I'm not gonna do any construction history, or I don't need to keep this, so I'll just delete it. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is because right now it's a 6 degree and 2 spans. The reason why it's 6 degree and not a 5 degree is because I built this wheel flat as a 6 degree. To be honest, I don't like using 6 degrees that much. It's just a personal choice. So I'm just gonna try to see if I can improve on it. So I'm gonna use align, and I'm just gonna align the surface to the wheel flat like this, and I'm going to say partial, and I'm going to try to see, first of all, get rid of span. Okay, so we were able to retain positional continuity, and I'm going to decrease the degree to 5. Yes, when we were able to do that without much difficulty. So right now, when I increase the position influence, the CVs did shift a little bit. So I'm going to turn on blending, and I'm going to have extra CV row like that. And I'm going to delete the construction history, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, let's see if there was a shift. No, there wasn't. So I think that's pretty good. Now the CV alignment, I don't know, it kind of looks funny over here, but I think that's okay. All right, so I'm gonna recreate the surface, so 1 and 2. So I'm gonna click here, here, and here. And again, this has degree 6, so I'm gonna see if I can decrease it. So I'm gonna turn on explicit control. Now the real degree, I can keep it at 2 because it's both degree 2 on both sides. The generation degree, yeah, we can leave it at 3, and it looks pretty good. Okay, so next up, I'm going to be doing the same thing. So right now, I think the highlight looks, here, it doesn't look bad. I think I can definitely push this in a little bit, but I think what I'm going to do is, instead of pushing that in, what I want to do is make sure that these two surfaces are as flush as possible. So I think instead I'm going to, well, first of all, I'm going to delete this curve. And I think I'm just going to pull this CV out, and I'm going to make sure the transition is a little bit smoother. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use NUV proportional modification with NUV and mouse sensitivity at 50. Actually it's aligned, so I'm just going to delete the construction history, because even if I do a transform CV, it's just going to snap right back into its original position. So I'm just going to grab these, and I'm just going to pull them out just a little bit. Am I pulling it out? Oh, I'm going back. I'm going to the other side. So I'm just going to pull them out, make sure that it's getting close to flush. And you'll see that the CVs, the surfaces look a lot more like they're together, that they're flowing quite well. Maybe just a little bit more. I am pushing it out quite a bit. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. We don't have to make a curvature. We can, because if it's close enough, we can just use a freeform. We can just use a blend feature to make that flush. Let's see how off we are. In order to do that, I can just use the surface continuity tool. Show max label, show comb on, and it's only off by half a degree. And you'll start to notice that there's a comb here. I think that's telling me that it's actually going over to the other side. So it's probably creating a peak over here, and I can see that right here. So I think this is a good place to stop. And what I can do is I can just create a big blend in order to make that flush. Okay, so that's pretty good, I think. And I'm just going to, again, to project over here, like this. And I'm going to trim that piece over here, and I'm going to try to create this piece over here. So again, I'm just going to use a curve, snap it right here, vertical, and again project like this. And I'm going to do a trim, and 1 and 1. I'm going to turn this off, turn that off. I'm just going to create a surface here. Okay, now let's evaluate that. So looks like we have a natural peak over here, so that's good. And you'll see that it's a flowing. I don't know if this is what's necessarily happening in the real car, but we'll have to see. But at least the highlights straight here, so I think that should help. And one of the things I can do is I can try to rotate this in order to make the feature a little bit more coherent between these two. But I'm just going to leave it for now, and we can always fix it later. Okay, the problem is, however, there's a lot of spans. So I'm going to try to fix that first. So I'm going to turn explicit control on. And I'm going to try to, okay, so gen degree, 3 degrees. This one, I'm going to try to increase it a little bit. So 5 degree was able to get that settled in. So that's pretty good. Okay, so I see a little peak right here. But I'm probably gonna be doing a, well, actually, let's make that a little bit more coherent so that it's, you know, okay. So I think that's pretty good. That's not too bad. We still need a peak here because there's a peak in the body side over here. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. For now, I might just do a little bit less, maybe 5, and I can just always blend it over here. Okay, so I think that's good, and let's do some other areas. Okay, so I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a try to create a surface over here. Actually, before we do that, let me just cover this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to untrim this piece right here. Like that. Okay, and I'm going to delete the curved surface over here. And I'm going to make sure that this feature, this surface ends here, because if you see in this one here, you'll see that this line is actually going towards somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to try to do that also. Okay, so I'm just going to do a bi-rail, 1 and 2. And I'm going to pick this curve right here, pick this surface edge over here. Actually, I'm going to trim this back because it's a little bit too long. So I'm going to bi-rail again, curve, surface edge, and surface edge right here. I'm going to turn the explicit control off. I'm probably going to have to turn it back on, but for this one, I'll just leave it like that. Okay. So looks like we have a little problem. This reversing. Let's see if I can, yeah, that works. Okay, so right now you'll notice that there's a little curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use an extend tool and trim it because it's not exactly the shape that I want. Okay, however, I think the surface looks pretty good. It's got a nice, yeah, I think that looks pretty nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to side view, F6, or you can click on the cube, doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to untrim this one. And I'm just going to duplicate it. Maybe I have, no, I don't have the curve. Okay. So if that's the case, I'm just going to say duplicate over here. And I'm just going to extend. Okay, before I extend, this is a degree 6 surface, so I don't think we need that much data. So I'm just going to turn on explicit control, and we can always decrease it. Looks like degree 3 is the one we want. And I'm going to use extend, and I'm going to do a project and trim. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right. I don't know if I should test this before I think it'd be okay. All right. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to start doing some fillets. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the construction history on these two because I don't want to mess them up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a surface fillet. So I'm going to say chord G2, And quarter length, I'm gonna probably start at 200. And form factor, I'm gonna change it to 0.5. And I click on this one and click on this one. Okay, so it looks like it needs to be a lot bigger. So I'm gonna say 400. So basically I wanna make sure that this size is similar as it was before. So I think I can go bigger. Just keeping with the previous size, I'm just gonna go with 500. Looks like the CV structure is a little bit off. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of doing this, I'm just gonna pick this point, throw a curve down straight. I'm gonna delete. Well, actually, because we already have this curve, I think I can just use that. So I'm just gonna snap it from here to here. Oops, here to here, and I'll just use that as the basis. Okay, but because I already have a curve with nice lead in, so I'm gonna just duplicate that. And these, this fillet, I'm just gonna do undo. And let's see, yeah, let's just use that. Okay, so because using the curve that we just extracted, I'm just gonna project it onto here and here. And I'm gonna say trim. Now, before I draw a trim, I'm just going to get rid of this carbon surface like this, so that I'm just trimming this piece right here. And this one, I'm just gonna hide it temporarily. And this one, trim it like that. Okay, because we already have the curves. Oh, looks like it's a little bit short. Okay, so in that case, I'm just going to align it to this edge. Make sure blending is off, and it's G2. And I'm gonna make sure the same thing over here. Okay, so I'm just gonna use extend. Snap it right there and align. Probably doesn't need a line, but just in case, I'm just gonna align it to this edge right there. Okay, that looks good. And I'm gonna use square. 1 is going to be curvature, 3 is going to be curvature. So 1, 2, oh, looks like the upper one is a little bit off too. Okay, so I'm just gonna use a stretch tool. Okay, so stretch right there, and okay, so that's good. And again, using a line, we gotta make sure the curves are aligned. G2 over there, and G2 over here. Again, square. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so it looks like it worked quite well. 1 and 3, I'm just gonna, okay, so 1 looks like that worked. Okay, so why is it degree 6? Looks like this is degree 6. I should have fixed that. Okay, so if that's the case, what I can do is I can just use a line over here, and I'm gonna change that to position. I'm gonna change that to blending on. No, just 1. Okay, and I'm going to, let's see, why is continue check? It's not showing up. Oh, it is green, so okay, so that's good. Maybe decrease it to 3, and it worked, so I'm pretty good with that. Okay, so for this one, let's try to rebuild on both sides. Let's see, 5 over here, and we were to achieve the same surface continuing with degree 3 only. Okay, so that's good. And the highlight looks beautiful. It's got a nice continuous line all the way through, and I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so same thing on the bottom. So I'm just gonna project over here, and I'm just gonna temporarily get rid of this carbon surface. Trim over here. Oops, did I not project it? Okay, so again, project like this and trim. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to use bi-rail because we don't have a curve here. So I'm going to say 1 and 2. So 1 over here and rail over here. And it says position failed because we don't have enough data. So I'm going to leave it at 3, 4, 5. That looks good. Rail 1 is going to be curvature. Rail 2 is going to be curvature. Now, I think that looks pretty good, but if you see the edge, it's actually not flush to the surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use align. And I'm just going to align this. And I instead of skew, I'm going to say edge. And same thing over here. I'm going to align this side. And instead of skew, I'm going to say edge. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so the highlight I think looks good on both sides. So I'm going to say that's pretty good. All right, so I think this is a good place to stop. Okay, so that's it for part 20. We will continue building this Fender on the next tutorial. Hey, thank you guys for watching.